There's a specific kind of Saturday. Nothing went wrong. Nobody called. You just woke up and started filling garbage bags. Not because the place was a mess. Not because you were moving. Just the jacket from that year. The books from when you still believed a certain version of things. The gifts from someone who isn't around anymore. Into the bag. Gone. And for a few hours, it feels like the most productive thing you've done in months. If you've ever felt the pull to purge everything and called it getting organized, there's a reason. And it has nothing to do with Marie Kondo. The psychology of compulsive decluttering is one of the most misunderstood behaviors in modern life. Most people assume it's about organization, about cleanliness, about being the kind of person who has their life together. But research in behavioral psychology tells a different story. Dr. Gail Steketee, who has studied compulsive behaviors at Boston University, describes decluttering obsession as the inverse shadow of hoarding. Not its opposite, but its mirror image. Both behaviors are attempts to regulate internal chaos through the control of objects. Hoarders keep everything to create safety. Compulsive declutterers erase everything for the same reason. Not because the objects are the problem, because the objects are witnesses. Witnesses to a version of themselves they're trying to forget. And here's what nobody tells you. When someone purges their space obsessively, gets rid of things that still work, still mean something, they're not making space for anything new. They're trying to outrun something old, something that keeps showing up in the wrong places. The past doesn't stay in the past for people like this. It hides in objects, waits, and the only way to stop running into it is to make sure it isn't there when you get home. They don't just donate the books. They donate the person who read them, the one who underlined things and thought it mattered, who thought life was going to go a certain way. And right before the bag goes in the car, there's this feeling, almost like hope, like maybe the weight of a thing leaves with the thing itself. It doesn't, but you try anyway. This is what psychologists call environmental control as emotional regulation, the compulsive management of physical space to create the illusion of control over internal experience. The brain, when overwhelmed by circumstances it cannot change, redirects that need for control onto the only domain where it has absolute power: the closet, the bookshelf, the junk drawer. In those spaces, they are God. They decide what stays and what disappears. They execute order. They enforce simplicity. And for a few hours, maybe a few days, the act of emptying creates a biochemical reward so powerful it feels like starting over. But here's where it gets genuinely disturbing. That feeling, the relief, the lightness, the sense of starting fresh, isn't peace. It's a dopamine hit. Research published in the Journal of Behavioral Addictions has documented that the act of disposal triggers the same reward pathways as acquisition. There's a buyer's high, and there's a purger's high. Both are temporary. Both are addictive. And both are the brain's way of self-medicating against a reality it doesn't know how to process. The difference is that acquiring fills a void with objects. Purging fills a void with emptiness. And emptiness, for a certain kind of nervous system, feels safer than anything that could be taken away. Because if you own nothing, you have nothing to lose. If your space is bare, there are no reminders. If the evidence of who you used to be is gone, maybe, the pain attached to that version can go with it. This is what therapists sometimes call identity purging, the compulsive erasure of personal history through the removal of objects tied to it. And for a while it works. The space feels clean, lighter, manageable, until it doesn't, until the apartment just feels empty instead of free, like a waiting room, like somewhere between who they were and whoever comes next. The minimalism that was supposed to bring peace starts to feel like living in a space designed for no one. And the cruel irony is almost unbearable. The more they empty the space around them, the louder the emptiness inside becomes. Because the objects were never the problem. They were the distraction from the problem. The first time it happens, it feels like finally getting it together, like becoming someone who travels light. There's pride in it. Look how little I need. But somewhere around the third or fourth round, something shifts, because letting go and releasing are not the same thing. Letting go is just moving an object out the door. Releasing is what happens after you've actually sat with what it meant. And the bags keep filling before the last ones even made it to the donation center. Not because the space got cluttered again, because the feeling did. They grieve, sometimes, the objects they wish they'd kept, the letters, the photos, the small things that held no practical value but carried an entire chapter of a life. Things they can never get back. The compulsion to empty doesn't just erase clutter, it erases evidence. Evidence that they loved, that they tried, that they were someone before everything fell apart, and that grief lives in the body long after the closet is bare. Ruthless but restless, emptying rooms but unable to empty the feeling, creating silence but never quite finding quiet. That is the compulsive declutterer. Not organized. Existence cleansing, not tidy. Terrified. Terrified of the past catching up. Terrified of weight. Terrified of being the kind of person who holds on when letting go is the only thing that's ever felt like control. And the truth that no one says out loud is this: the void they create isn't freedom. It's just another place to hide. But somehow, they're still here, still looking for the version of emptiness that finally feels like peace, still trying to find a way to live lightly in a world that feels impossibly heavy. And maybe, eventually, they'll learn that you can't throw away the things that live inside you. You can only learn to hold them differently. If you've ever thrown something away and immediately felt both relief and regret, if you've ever stood in an empty room and realized the emptiness didn't fix anything, you're not alone in that. We peel back the layers of behaviors the world calls healthy. If you want to see what's actually underneath, subscribe. Let's look at the patterns others ignore.